One of the topics in on this podcast is Trump and the immigrants. I have made it clear that I've said that I have been an immigrant in the United States for many years, and I kind of understand the inner workings of the immigrants. And I think that I would like to kind of talk about some of the things that I know, and I think a lot of people need to know. But before I get to that, let's talk about Trump and the immigrants. And I'm going to look at this from a spiritual point of view, and from what I believe is a divine message that was delivered to former president and future president Donald Trump on the day that there was an attempted assassination of him. I know even Trump has agreed. He admits that there was a divine intervention on his life at that day. And the way I see it, the message, I think it was in front of everybody, in front of the TV cameras, in front of the public. And what happened was an assassin was hiding somewhere on the roof, and they fired a bullet. And this bullet came all the way so close to his head that it touched his ear. And from what I get from that, the ear means listening. That's what you get from that particular part of the message. Listen. And if you go back to the video, because there's a lot of people who have actually even drawn diagrams of how the trajectory of that bullet. And what a lot of people agree is that had the former president had he not turned his head the few degrees that he did, then that bullet would have ended up in his head, in the back of his head. But he did. He turned his head just enough to avoid the bullet. And the reason that he turned his head was because if you look back to those videos, there was a big billboard that he had put back there, and the billboard was addressing the issue of immigration. So he was addressing the immigrants. So I don't know if I'm stretching it too far, but what I'm taking from it is that immigrants saved his life. There was a message. He turned his head to address the immigrants, and the bullet touched his ear, and God saved his life that day. So what I get here is that the message is listen to the immigrants, because what the president was saying at that time, it was not a very friendly conversation about the immigrants. He was at that time talking about how he was gonna once elected, he was gonna have this mass deportation of immigrants. But I think that before he does that, I think the message that we all know is that first you want to listen to the immigrants. What do they have to say? And the immigrants have a lot to say. But the problem with immigrants is that they don't like talking. I think most people would say maybe they're intimidated, maybe they don't want to get involved in the politics, the United States politics, which is quite dirty. And all that is true, but most immigrants, I think somebody said it and I thought it was funny, say immigrants, they just want to see elbows and assholes, meaning that they just want to see you working, and that's what the immigrants are trying to do. But they also have a story. But we need to go back to this message to Donald Trump, which is, I think, is a divine message, saying listen to the immigrants. Then you can't listen to the immigrants if they're not speaking, if they're not all the way out there trying to communicate what they're going through or what's in their mind. And so that becomes very complicated. But I think what's going to happen now is that the immigrants are going to start speaking more. And what you're seeing here with me in front of this camera is probably a good start of the immigrants speaking more, talking more. And it's a good thing for most Americans to kind of not always ignore your immigrants. You see them out there. They're your neighbors, they're your friends, they're your co-workers. but never been interested of who these people are, where they come from, their story, and all these kind of things. And I think you should take an interest in it. But I have taken the initiative to write some of the things that immigrants bring their stories with, and I have a book out there. It's called "The Land Beyond the Rivers of Ethiopia," which is kind of trying to find a geographic location of where my home country is, Kenya. And that's actually a line from the Bible. There's a verse from the Bible, Zephaniah 3:10. So, and the approach to it is it is kind of I have to make a few more podcasts to get even anybody to understand what we're talking about. But the immigrants, they have a story, they have a struggle, and it is good to know, to hear and learn from them. So I remember this. I'm going to compare Donald Trump, the coming president, to a man in the Bible. And this man, his name was Balaam. And if you can remember, this kind of reminds me of that particular moment when God intervenes on behalf of Donald Trump on the day of his attempted assassination. And this man was hired, I think Balaam was hired to go to the Israelites and lay a curse on them. But on his way there, God intervened, and his donkey his horse or his donkey would not carry him. He stopped, and eventually the donkey, the God figured that this man Balaam he's not getting the message, and eventually the donkey spoke to him and told him the message that God had for this man who was going to lay a curse on the children of Israel. But he still did continue with his journey, but instead of laying a curse on the Israelites, he went and blessed them. And I think that's how the story of Trump is gonna go. He has already declared that he's gonna mass deport a lot of immigrants, but I think in the end, what he's gonna do, he's probably gonna want to learn more about immigrants, where they come from, who they are, their beliefs, and all this. And once he gets that, probably he's gonna be able to learn better ways to govern.